Hello and welcome to round 15's edition of the National League Rugby Preview Show, powered by Talking Rugby Union. A happy new year to you all, and we hope you all had a brilliant festive period. But while the Christmas decorations have been put away for another year, the magic of National League Rugby flickers back into life this weekend in the shape of round 15. We have a block of 3 rounds to get stuck into in January before the start of something called the Six Nations at the end of the month. So why not get your fix of levels 3 and 4 of the English game before that all kicks off, as we say, at the end of January, going into February. And before we get into round 15 and looking ahead to this coming weekend in National League Rugby, a belated thank you to both Leeds Tykes and Camborne for their help on round 14 show a few weeks ago. Both clubs were extremely helpful, with Leeds also very accommodating when they invited us over to Headingley Stadium to preview their game against Otley just before Christmas. So a big thank you to both clubs who actually entered the festive period on top of their respective leagues. And as National League Rugby has been relatively absent from our lives over the last couple of weeks, we can't wait for it to resume this weekend. But as you will be well aware, the weather conditions up and down the country have been very treacherous. They've been very challenging, haven't they, over the last few days or so. And we're actually recording this show on Wednesday afternoon, so things may have changed by the time the show goes out on Thursday evening. So do keep an eye out on our website for any updates on your fixtures in particular. And of course, do visit your club's websites and social media channels to find out any updates. Fingers crossed the weather does improve between now and Saturday, and we do get a full set of fixtures. But in the meantime, as it stands, let's dive straight into National 1 and have a look back at round 14, whilst also previewing Saturday's action. So let's begin by updating you on the state of play in National 1, because before Christmas, there was a significant twist at the top of the table as leaders Richmond saw their unbeaten run come to an end against neighbours Roslyn Park, and there was certainly no season of goodwill shown by Kieran Power's side at the Rag, with Park winning 25-17. Richmond did try to fight back in the final quarter, but they couldn't maintain their unbeaten record. A fantastic win for Roslyn Park, but that defeat for Richmond means they begin 2025 with a 1-point lead at the summit after second place Rams returned to winning ways before Christmas. They beat Esher 31-3 under the Friday night lights at Old Bath Road, and it was the ideal response for Seb Reynolds' side, who had lost 3 games on the bounce against all of their fellow title counterparts, and the bonus point victory coming in the 73rd minute for Rams, and that will give them renewed belief in this title race. So just 1 point separating Rams and Richmond, and only 4 points separating the top 3 after third place Rotherham Titans battled to a 29-14 victory over bottom of the table Darlington Moden Park in round 14. It was level at 14-all, but 2 tries in the final 7 minutes ensured Rotherham clinched the full 5 before Christmas. And it was a far from straightforward afternoon for Harvey Billion's side a few weeks ago, but they begin the new year right in the mix towards the top of National 1. So let's tidy up then what we've just discussed by looking at the National 1 standings and confirmation that the top 3 are separated by just 4 points, with Roslyn Park and Blackheath tucked in behind. Down at the bottom, Leicester Lions were also defeated in round 14 as they were beaten 27-10 by Birmingham Moseley, while Sedgley Park may have felt like the big winners after edging past Sale FC 14-12 to complete an unbeaten December for Scott Barrow's troops. So at the time of recording, this is how the first set of fixtures shape up in National 1 for 2025, and we begin with 7th travelling to 8th as Birmingham Moseley visit Bishop Stortford. Moseley quietly begin the new year on a 3-game winning run, and they have 2 games in hand on those above them, while Stortford will be looking to build on a pretty pleasing first half of the season. Elsewhere, Dean's Crusaders welcome Sedgley Park to Shaftesbury Park. Sedge picked up 12 points last month, but go to a Ding side who are unbeaten in 4 at home. Third place, Rotherham go to Esher, looking to maintain a possible tilt at the title. The Titans beat Esher 48-19 in the reverse fixture back in round 3, and Rotherham could go top this weekend with title rivals Richmond and Rams not in action due to their games being postponed against Darlington Moden Park and Sale FC, respectively. Meanwhile, 6th place Plymouth Albion will be looking to carry their December form into January when they take on Leicester Lions. Their 31-3 win over Dings before Christmas made it 3 victories in a row for Ryan Lamb's side. And lastly, Roslyn Park versus Blackheath is a standout fixture in National 1 as 4th go up against 5th. Park come into this on the back of a fantastic couple of wins against the top 2 in Rams and Richmond, while Blackheath will be keen to translate their very impressive run of 7 straight victories at home onto the road when they visit the Rock. So we begin National 2 in National 2 West this week, where Camborne still lead the way in this division. The Cherry and Whites shut the book on 2024 with a 24-14 victory over local rivals Redruth in front of a crowd of nearly 3,000 at the recreation grounds. An absolutely brilliant effort from all associated with Camborne, and of course the travelling support from Redruth as well. But on the pitch, Camborne actually found themselves 7-0 down at half-time, but 2 tries in the final 10 minutes proved decisive for Steve Larkins' side, who are where they want to be at the start of 2025. And they now have a 5-point buffer at the top of National 2 West, with their nearest challengers being Cinderford, who extended their unbeaten run to 6 matches before we broke up for Christmas. They picked up an excellent 22-20 victory away at 5th place Luctonians, thanks to a brace from Will Baldwin and a penalty from Harry Johnson. But there was a setback for possible title candidates Taunton Titans, who were the latest side to feel the full force of 6th place Hornets in round 14. Hornets continue to make movements up the table, and they actually entered round 14 unbeaten in 5 at the Nest, and they extended that record against the Titans with a 29-19 win, with Taunton departing Weston-super-Mare empty-handed. So a little bit of change, a little bit of movement towards the top of National 2 West before Christmas. So what it means for the table is, as we mentioned, Camborne do have that 5-point lead over Cinderford with a game in hand, which is actually against an informed Clifton, who are very much in the hunt in 3rd position. Down at the bottom, Exeter University gave themselves a shot in the arm before Christmas with an important 45-0 win over Devonport Services. That lifted Gareth Elliott's young side to 11th in the table, and they are now 4 points clear of the bottom 2 with a game in hand. But 13th place Macclesfield are not lying down, are they? After securing their first away win of the season last time out, they beat Bournemouth 24-13 to leave themselves 1 point from safety. So it is starting to become quite interesting, isn't it, towards the wrong end of the table. But back towards the top, and as we touched on 3rd place Clifton before, they are going very nicely indeed. And as I forgot to mention it in the intro to the show, they are one of our feature clubs on round 15's edition of the National League Rugby preview show, and for good reason. They take on Luctonians this weekend, but after just 1 win from their opening 5 games, the Lavender and Blacks are currently on an 8-match winning run after beating Bristol rivals Old Redcliffians 26-15 away from home just before Christmas. So they are going very nicely indeed, aren't they, Clifton? And they are 5 points off Camborne, who they still have to play twice. But once again, in terms of the bigger picture, Clifton are right in the mix towards the right end of National 2 West. So ahead of this weekend's meeting with Luctonians at Station Road, we caught up with Director of Rugby Matt Salter and Head Coach Luke Cozens. Let's start with you, Matt, to begin with. Obviously, we've had a couple of weeks off due to the Christmas festivities, but back straight into it in National 2 West this weekend, with Clifton sitting 3rd in the standings, level on points with 2nd place Cinderford. But as we begin January and really get the second half of the season underway, Matt, is this where you guys, Luke, the coaching staff, wanted Clifton to be at this stage of the season?
Yeah, I think over the last few years, it's obviously clearly you have an idea of where your squad may be, but sitting there and definitely saying where you're going to be and where you're going to be at what parts of the season is always a difficult thing to do. I think leagues at our level, teams can change drastically from year to year, and I think you don't always know where you are or where the standings are probably until the first sort of 4 to 6 weeks. You get a feel for where teams are, the level of competition. Consistency is a difficult thing in this league because there's a lot of fluctuations that can happen. So I wouldn't say necessarily that we said we would be here where we are, but we felt we had a very strong squad. But with that, and there were new boys that came in, and how quickly we could gel, and all those kind of things played a part. So I think we felt we'd be in a good position. We felt we have a strong squad, but ultimately, it was up to us to gel them, and to push them in the right direction. I think we're probably reasonably happy where we are, but ultimately, probably the next 4 to 6 weeks will tell really where we are.
We probably didn't appreciate how many new players we had early in the season, and we wanted a deeper squad because we know now at this level you can't just have 20 first team players. We really focused on trying to get 30 to 35 first team capable players. At first we did change the team a lot, and it probably did affect, maybe got a bit wrong, but it did affect our performance. And then fair play to the lads, they started to get a bit of consistency, and then as we always try, you want it player driven. We give them the tools, and they've taken them, and yeah, we've had a good block before Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely, Luke. And I know Matt talked about kind of consistency there, and I know you guys have been around these leagues, you know how difficult it is to have that consistency week to week with games back to back. So how pleasing is it when you combine all those things, Luke, that you just talked about there, with players gelling, new players coming in, to find yourselves on this 8-game winning streak, should I say, at the start of 2025?
Yeah, like I say, you talk about these streaks, but like I say, we discuss weekly that since the leagues have changed, was this the toughest year, or was last year the toughest year? But I do think that this particular section of National 2, there's a lot of competitive teams in our league, and you can lose any week if you're not quite at the races.
I think it's the most competitive league it has been. I think when we've looked down, maybe at the beginning of the season, and when we probably weren't at the races necessarily, and we didn't pick up those wins where we were. We looked at our squad and said, is our starting group vastly better than our starting group from last year? And probably we looked at it, we said touch and go, but maybe not. But probably towards the last few weeks, the depth of our squad has shown through. And I think that's what Luke sort of highlighted, that there are more gaps in the season, but the league is attritional. It is hard work. And this big block before Christmas, we've been in good shape going into those sort of Christmas games or the games in December, and that's where we've really sort of hit our straps. So, I think our strength in squad has been reflected in the last few weeks, which we're pretty happy with.
Yeah, and Luke, looking at kind of the wider picture with Clifton, I know it says on the club badge that 1872, it's such an historic club to have in the national leagues. But if you're going to focus on the last few years, for example, it's a club that's been at the top end of National 2 West. It was a club that was at the top end of National 2 South. So can you give maybe viewers a bit of an insight into how you've been able to have that consistency, certainly over the last few years? Because people talk about a one club feel, people moving in the same direction, and it does feel like that potentially at Clifton.
Well, I say we've got a bigger squad so we've got more depth, but to manage it, we could all say, one direction, like everyone wants to play. So it's been challenging in that aspect, but off the back of that, our second team have improved vastly. They got promoted last year, and they're currently in second place now. So that having those players dropping down, trying to jump back up, help raise the level.
I think mainly we've also adopted sort of the attitude that there's a sort of the club are developing off the field, and by developing off the field, I mean that there's development plans here. There's 5,000 homes going in around here. There's some really exciting things going on. We moved here in 1976, and there was fields everywhere and nothing. Now you see, all these homes going in, and that's a real opportunity off the field to drive the club forward. And we sort of said 2 or 3 years ago that we want to take a group of players with us that will be there when that happens. Because I think for a lot of players, you can, at the moment, and we see them move around clubs, move through a lot of clubs, but to actually do something with a club, and that's not always, getting promoted, that comes from a byproduct of a lot of things, but to go on a journey with a club where they see the whole thing develop and change, we've said that we want a squad that have been here 5-6 years, that when the development finishes and we talk about what's the next 100 years for Clifton, those guys feel it's part of their club and they're part of this journey that we're going on. I think it's quite a nice thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's probably a microcosm of the streak, the run that you guys have been on, as we mentioned, at the top 8 straight wins for Clifton, going into a big couple of weeks, well, a big second half of the season, starting with Luctonians this weekend. Luke, I know, sort of looking back through your form, Station Road has been very, very much a fortress for you guys. I think you only lost once in 2024 there. And I think Luctonians are only one of the sides to beat you inside of the last 14, 15 months at home. So what is it about Station Road that gets the best out of you guys?
Like I say, we pride ourselves on trying to play a good brand of rugby, and the pitch is obviously massive. So it leans towards that. So, yeah. That's always the aim. If you play a good brand of rugby, or try, then people will come. Good people will come, because at the end of the day, they want to come and enjoy themselves. So, but yeah, they've actually beaten us twice in the last 2 seasons in our place. So, yeah.
Clearly, the pitch and the width of the pitch and all those kind of things that Luke talked about lends itself to the brand of rugby we play. I think there's a confidence about the boys when they play at home. But I also think, and this is, some will disagree and may agree, that obviously we've gone to 3 leagues at this level and National 2 West. That has meant that geographically, a lot of clubs come here, they aren't too far away. And that brings a level of support, it brings atmosphere, it probably brings some sort of a commonality between a lot of the boys know each other a little bit and things like that, which really sort of brings a bit of spice to matches, which is quite nice. And I think definitely the boys feel that this is their patch, this is home for us, and we want to do well here.
Yeah. And Luke mentioned it before, kind of Luctonians have been kind of a side who've been able to potentially get the better of you at home over the last couple of seasons. So are you expecting any different from this Luctonian side when they come to your place on Saturday?
Not really. I think we see that they do a lot of things consistently well. And although a few players have moved on or gone different places, they reinvested in players. The players there still deliver that level of performance that we've seen from them. And they're a difficult team to break down. And I think that's where we've struggled a little bit in terms of how we break them down. And I think that's what one of our focuses this week is being specific to Luctonians, whilst obviously doing what we do and protecting our identity. We do need to look at how we potentially break Luctonians down, because they are a tough side, and that's where they've got us over the last couple of games, certainly here, but up there this season as well.
Early in the season, when we were struggling, they destroyed us probably at set piece, and just like Salt said, well drilled, low error count. But like, we use that as a marker now to see how our forwards have come on, etc. So, but yeah, this would be a good marker. I know it's straight after Christmas, and it's always difficult, but this would be a good marker to say, where have we been and where have we got to? And following week also against Cinderford, who are very strong up front.
As we probably sort of said at the beginning, the next 4 or 5 weeks really unfolds in terms of where we believe we can be. And by that, we've got a lot of players that we're mindful of investing in the squad in terms of exposure to first team level. It's trying to manage that throughout the season as well. Clearly, the next few weeks are very much our focus. And then post that, I think we got to look at what we do with the group for that last part of the season. And that will be determined by our success over the next 5 weeks.
So a big thanks to both Matt and Luke for their time on Tuesday night. Both hugely experienced operators, aren't they? And they both know just how competitive National 2 West is becoming. And yet again, this season is absolutely no different. But as we said, Clifton's home record is very impressive indeed. Throughout the whole of 2024, they lost just once at home against Cinderford. That was during this season. And before that, the only other side to beat Clifton at Station Road was Luctonians back in November 2023. So it does seem to have all the elements, this game on Saturday between Clifton and Luctonians, to be a very decent contest indeed. And if you are around the Clifton area looking for a sporting fix on Saturday, I tell you what, Station Road isn't a bad option at all. So what else have we got to look forward to in round 15? Remember, this may have been recorded before postponements have been announced in National 2 West, but at the time of recording, one of Clifton's fellow title counterparts, Cinderford, are set to welcome Hinckley to Dockham Road. Cinderford have won their last 5 at home, while 10th placed Hinckley begin 2025 after a solid 46-14 victory over Loughborough Students last time out. Bottom of the table, Devonport Services will be looking for a response after 2 heavy defeats to end the calendar year. They entertain 8th placed Old Redcliffians, who have lost their last 3 games. Loughborough Students take on a high-flying Hornets. Hornets will be looking to translate their excellent home form onto the road, while the Students will be targeting back-to-back home victories, with Macclesfield's meeting with Exeter University falling foul to the weather. Table rivals Bourneville will have an extra incentive to hold their own slide down the table. Some narrow defeats in there, but it's no winning 6 for the Chocos, who go to 7th place Redruth, who they did incidentally beat back in round 3. And we finish with a mighty old battle at the top, with league leaders Camborne set to travel to 4th place Taunton Titans. What a fixture this is to kick off the new year. Taunton haven't lost at home all season, and a win for the Titans would blow the title race wide open, but Camborne will be in no mood for that to happen. So from the west to the north we go, where the title race is beautifully poised going into 2025. And there was some shuffling of the leading pack in round 14, with Leeds Tights and Lim both picking up bonus point successes before Christmas. In terms of the Tykes then, they edged themselves to the summit of the division after shrugging off Otley 33-10 at Headingley, with Leeds' pack powering them to a 13th win of this season. So a good win for Leeds Tykes. As for Lim, not for the first time this season, their game was right in the balance against Chester going into the final 10 minutes in round 14. They led 28-26, but 3 late tries killed the game as a contest and earned Lim a 52-26 win. So bonus point successes for Leeds Tykes and Lim meant Sheffield did drop to 3rd in the standings and are now a point behind the leading 2, but that won't concern Anthony Poser and his side at all at this stage of the season, as after they battled to a hard-fought 17-12 Derby Day victory in round 14 against Sheffield Tigers, tries from Ryan Burrows and Archie Crapper saw them defeat their near neighbours at Aberdale Park. So it wasn't a full 5 for Sheffield, but they will be very pleased to get that victory under their belt before the Christmas break. So how it stands then, how it looks going into round 15 in terms of the standings, just confirmation that the top 3 are separated by that single point. It's fine margins yet again in National 2 North, but from a neutral perspective, it is so intriguing as we really get our teeth stuck into the second half of this campaign. Down at the bottom, Billingham was so close to ending their 6-match winless run in round 14, but Peter Evans' late drop goal attempt rattled the crossbar in their Christmas Derby Day meeting with Tyndale, who eventually edged it 26-25 up in the northeast, but so close for Billingham, who now sits 7 points behind 12th place Sheffield Tigers with a game in hand. And as you can see, actually, in terms of the bottom half, just 7 points separate 9th and 13th in the division. So it is super tight as we begin 2025. So at the time of recording, here are the fixtures for round 15 in National 2 North. Of course, these are subject to change and may have changed already due to the weather. So please do check out our website and your club's channels for any updates. But as it stands, we start with Lim, who travel to 4th place Fylde, which will be their first examination of the new year. Woodlands is never an easy place to go, but it was the scene of one of Lim's finest victories last season when they won 15-14. So how much will Adam Fletcher and Andy Davis' side be hoping for a repeat outcome? Title rivals Sheffield are also on the road when they visit second from bottom Harrogate. The host picked up a losing bonus in a heartbreaking 18-15 away defeat to 5th place Wharfdale just before Christmas. So what can they take from that going into 2025? And the final title candidate, Leeds Tights, go to Hull in round 15. Hull gave themselves a real boost before the break as they moved 7 points clear of the bottom two, and after a very tense 37-36 win over neighbours Hull Ionians, they have now beaten 3 of the top 7 sides. So could they really add to that on Saturday against league leaders Leeds Tigers? Down towards the bottom, Billingham go to 9th place Otley. One of Billingham's 3 wins this term came against Otley back in September, but the hosts will be keen to improve on their recent run of just 1 victory from their last 6 games. And we're also informed that there will be a pitch inspection at Otley on Friday afternoon. And finally, Sheffield Tigers versus Preston Grasshoppers has become a big game for both sides. The Tigers really look to have turned a corner towards the end of 2024, which includes back-to-back home wins. So can they make it a 3rd success on the spin at Dormoor against the Preston side, who have lost their last 5 games and are now just 6 points above the bottom 2? And as you can see there at the time of recording, Chester's meeting with Hull Ionians and Tynedale versus Wharfdale have both been postponed. And lastly, we head to National 2 East, where leaders Tunbridge Judians will be hoping to pick up from where they left off from in 2024. The table toppers made it 13 wins from 14 matches after their 22-0 success over Colchester in round 14. It was far from the prettiest victory TJs has mustered up this season, played in very tough weather conditions as well, but they won't care one jot as they sit 8 points clear of their nearest rivals, and their nearest challengers are currently Dorking, who edged past fellow title contenders Barnes 14-7 in an eventful contest before Christmas. Now, you may have seen us chatting to Barnes director of rugby Jack Heald in round 14's National League Rugby preview show, and we were talking about kind of the close encounters Barnes and Dorking have had over the last 3 seasons or so, but I don't think there may have been one quite like the one we saw a few weeks ago, because Barnes received 6 yellow cards and 2 red cards as Dorking eked out the win in the capital. Barnes played much of the first 40 with 30 men and did actually lead 7-0 on 55 minutes, but Dorking turned the tide in their favour, and from their perspective it was the ideal result after a setback against Canterbury in round 13. But overall, a pretty unusual game between 2 of the top 3 sides, but it was Dorking who came out with the victory. So as we said, TJs currently lead the way in National 2 East with Dorking in second. Dorking do have a game in hand to come next month at home against Guernsey Raiders, while Canterbury are settling into the top 4 after a good run of form. At the other end, it still remains close, especially between the bottom 3 sides. 14th place Worthing are certainly not giving up the fight, as shown in their performance against Havant just before Christmas, where they were narrowly beaten 22-19, but all of those sides will be hoping to string some positive results together in the early weeks of 2025. And just hovering above those bottom 3 clubs at the moment are Sevenoaks, who are our second feature club of the week on the National League Rugby preview show. Now, Adam Bowman's men are in Derby Day action this weekend against table toppers Tunbridge Judians on Saturday. And before losing to Kent rivals Canterbury just before Christmas, Sevenoaks had won 3 games on the spin, and that really ignited their 3rd successive season at this level. So we caught up with Director of Rugby Adam Bowman to discuss the steps the club have been taking over the last few years. And of course, we looked ahead to their Derby Day clash with Tunbridge Julians. Of course, we are set to resume the National League Rugby season for 2025 this weekend, certainly in National 2 East as well. 14 games into the campaign for Sevenoaks. So a bit of a broad question to begin with, Adam. How do you kind of assess the first half of the season for you guys going into this next block of fixtures in January?
Yeah, so we were disappointed with the first half of the season, but we were pretty pleased with our last month that we had building into Christmas, and looking to build on those performances going into the new, coming into the new year. So, yeah, disappointed probably in the first half, but very pleased with the results and the performances that we saw in the second half of the first half of the season. I think we were particularly disappointed with the loss at home to Colchester. And I was really pleased with the reaction from the whole squad the following week away to Westcombe Park, and I think that was a big moment for the group. And it was pretty horrendous conditions going down to Westcombe Park on that day, and we had a plan and we stuck to it and we executed it really well that day, and that provided a huge amount of just confidence and belief with the group. And the group have worked incredibly hard this season, and they have done since the start of pre-season. So it's great for everyone involved, players and staff, to get the rewards that we deserve.
And trusting what you do and working hard is probably 2 elements across the board, Adam, which has seen Sevenoaks kind of really start to cement themselves in National 2 East. We said before we hit record that 2.5 seasons in now, 3rd season, at this level. So how much of there is a sense around the club that this is the level where you guys absolutely deserve to be after promotion a few years ago?
Yeah, we think it's a great league. It's a league full of every single team in it is a really good outfit and throws challenges at you. So this for us is the level that we want to continue to grow and develop in. And we've got to continue to grow as a club on and off the pitch, to work our way up this league.
It ties in nicely to my next question, really, Adam. Obviously, you're taking step forwards in terms of the first 15. I know last year there was more points on the board, more wins on the board for you, but we spoke when I think it was just after your first season at this level about how much effort goes in across the whole of the club, which is obviously, and then the success of the first 15 is probably a byproduct of that. So whether that is the growth of the women's section, the mini and junior section, which I think is one of the strongest in National League Rugby, the touch rugby offering, community programs in schools, there is a lot of things, moving parts behind the scenes, isn't it? And it's not just the first 15 at Sevenoaks that continue to make steps in the right direction.
Yeah, we're incredibly proud of our large community rugby club, and the fact that we offer rugby to girls and boys from under 5s up to our academy girls and boys under 18s, through to our men and women's teams, both performance players and social rugby players. So, you mentioned our senior women's group. They kind of restarted 2.5 years ago, and we're delighted to announce that we've just started a second team for our women's at the start of this new calendar year, and that's a massive step, considering the group started 2.5 years ago, and testament to all the people involved in leading that group. So, we're very proud of who we are, and the fact that we've got so many homegrown boys and girls coming through the system, from our juniors to our academy and into our senior men and women now.
And obviously we're looking ahead, Adam, to an all Kent affair this weekend with you guys hosting Tunbridge Julians. But just going back to the point there that you made about kind of the development you've made across the whole club, that must be really healthy for Kent rugby in general, because you've got you guys who are doing great things. We spoke to Canterbury earlier on in the season. They have some fantastic offers and opportunities for people to get involved in the club. The same at Tunbridge Julians, Westcombe Park just down the road as well. So it feels like the ecosystem of Kent rugby is in a good place at the moment, when you've got guys like yourselves who are putting in so much work behind the scenes.
It's a competitive county, but it's great. It's everyone loves a derby game, and days like this Saturday against Tunbridge Julians it's kind of why you do it. It's that local rivalry. It's friendly rivalry, but it's still the games you want to be playing. We're 10 minutes down the road from each other. You know each other fairly well. There's friendships outside of off the pitch. And it's there's a special atmosphere on these days. There's big crowds, big turnouts, and they're the kind of days and games that you want to be part of, really. So come on down to the paddock at 2:00 and experience what will be a really good atmosphere and a great game of rugby. And we had 2 great games of rugby last season. They did a job on us at the start of this year, so we've got to try and return the favour on Saturday.
And just finally from me, Adam, in terms of, looking ahead, I know you want to just focus on these probably next 3 block of games in January, but kind of what are the hopes for you guys at Sevenoaks in this second half of the season? Is it to yet again improve on what you were able to achieve last season?
I think it's for me, it's we just want to focus on building on our performances and results from before Christmas. So I'm going to give you that boring answer, which is about this Saturday, and then we'll look at the following week away at Barnes. So unfortunately, that is the boring answer I'm going to give you, which is all about this Saturday.
And a huge thanks then to Adam for his time earlier this week. He's always keen to look at Sevenoaks from a whole club perspective in his role as director of rugby, and they want to take steps forward collectively as a rugby club. But in terms of just the first 15, they have certainly done that, haven't they, over the last month or so, with those 3 wins from their last 4 games. But can that continue against league leaders Tunbridge Julians? It's going to be a tall order, but Sevenoaks did beat TJs in this corresponding fixture last February, so really should be a good one at the paddock this weekend. And at the time of recording, there are not many seats left for Sevenoaks' pre-match lunch. So if you do fancy taking a trip to the paddock this weekend to watch Sevenoaks versus Tunbridge Julians, make sure you check out Sevenoaks' Instagram account and the club website for any details around the pre-match lunch. But if you just wanted to head down to the paddock for just the 80 minutes of rugby, I'm sure Adam and everyone at the club will give you a warm welcome. So that is just one of 7 games which is set to go ahead this weekend in National to East. So let's have a look at what else we've got to look forward to. Well, it's set to be a big year for Colchester, who are celebrating their centenary year in 2025, and the 13th place side will also want to have something to cheer about on the field. They are currently 4 points from safety with a game in hand, and they begin the new year with a home meeting against 3rd placed Barnes. Dorking, who we highlighted at the top, take on Old Albanian, who ended a 7-match losing run in style in round 14 after beating Oxford Harlequins 52-8. 5th place Guernsey Raiders will be looking to leave a disruptive and frustrating final couple of months in 2024 behind them when they host Havant in round 15. The visitors really seem to embrace the National to East experience since promotion and currently sit 9th in the table. Henley Hawks welcome Westcombe Park to Dry Lees. The Hawks dropped into the bottom half of the standings after no wins in December. By contrast, 7th place Westcombe Park won all 3 of their fixtures last month. Bury St Edmunds go to Oxford Harlequins, having won 3 of their last 4 games, but all 3 of those wins came at home. So can Jacob Ford's side translate that onto the road against an Oxford Quins side that have lost their last 5 games? Sevenoaks versus Tunbridge Julians we've already mentioned. And finally, bottom of the table Worthing take on a Canterbury side who have won 5 of their last 6 matches. So that is all for round 15 show this week. Please continue to support National League Rugby if you can by liking and sharing both our content on our YouTube channel and across our social media channels. You may have actually seen before Christmas we published a try scored by Camborne, and it's an absolute worldie by the National 2 West league leaders, and included in there is an outrageous pass from Josh Matafesi as well. It kind of went semi-viral, a lot bigger than we thought it was going to be. So if you did miss that, do check it out on our social media channels, because it is well worth a watch, and plenty more tries like that will be scored, no doubt, before now and the end, or between now and the end of the season. Don't forget also to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is absolutely free to do. We are up to around 2,600 subscribers now. So thanks so much to everyone who's taken those few seconds to hit that subscribe button. But we do want to keep that number going up and up in a positive direction. So if you haven't already, and if you can, please show your support by clicking the subscribe button. As I say, it's absolutely free to do. Do visit our website as well for all the latest reviews and previews. And as we always say, it is the best way to find out all the results from a Saturday afternoon. A link to our website is in the description of this video. Do check out talkingrugbyunion.co.uk as well, who are massive, massive supporters of National League Rugby. They allow me and us to do this every single week. So do give talkingrugbyunion.co.uk a visit as well. And yeah, that is it for this week. We hope you enjoyed the first show of 2025, and make sure you enjoy round 15 as well. And we look forward to seeing you next week.